Hello and welcome to another video. Today we will be looking at 3 ADC vods and doing a sort of a case study on the key takeaways. What we want to focus on today is laning, so that in combination with the last video where we outlined how to transition your laning wins into a game win, we now actually make those laning wins properly happen. So we will be looking at some wave management, but also the key of tracking enemy cooldowns, trading, realizing how matchups work. If we begin with the Gumayusi VOD that I've selected, we have a draft phase. So first of all, I want to talk about this, because we have okay, my bad. So sorry. We have Ezreal and we have Bard against Heimer and Varus. Obviously, it could also be Talia and this guy is mid or something, but I already know that it's a Heimer support, so we can just assume that for now. So here, Gumayusi opts into going TP. The reason for this is because Ezreal with Bard is going to have no way to contest push against Varus and Heimer. And since we have no way to contest push, we will keep getting pushed in and in and in. We don't really know if the Varus is going to go an on-hit build yet, or a lethality type build. Though here, he's not really forced to go on-hit, because our jungler is an assassin, our mid laner is somewhat tank. He has Rise, but not a tank. And our top laner is a bruiser. So here, it's perfectly fine for Varus to just go lethality and move on. If Varus were to go lethality, then us playing something like heal or exhaust would make no sense, because with exhaust we will never reach the enemy. With heal, we try to fight better, but if the enemy is human, then there's no way that we're going to get a fight off. Something like cleanse, there is a use for cleanse this game against Heimer, but it's really quite niche. I suppose you won't get one shot by Varus ult and you won't get one shot by Heimer E, but your lane is going to be completely unplayable. I believe that this is why Gumayusi opts into going TP, because if you keep getting pushed in the whole game, you will never find a base timer. With the jungle matchup, honestly, either one could really do anything, though it's more likely that Silas looks for more proactive plays and Kha'Zix can decide if he wants to be proactive or clear. So moving on to the lane. Our Silas avoided enemy blue buff, which is quite nice to have, because this means we can see enemy Kha'Zix earlier, and we can find out that he started here or here, or if he started somewhere else, that's also fine. And the key thing here is, okay, our jungler is starting topside, so our jungler will strongside us and walk towards us. That means that we are less scared of dives, because if our jungler started bot side and went topside, then dives would suddenly become more scary. This level 1 trading is mostly to stop the Heimer from setting up turrets and just destroying their wave. But okay. So now, the key thing to focus on when you start laning, it's the same thing in every lane, but especially in bot lane as ADC, is firstly, what is my best trade? So what is my best case scenario, my best all-in, my best trade, my best everything? Secondly, what is my matchup like? And thirdly, what is the spell hierarchy in this game? So the thing is, you want to track cooldowns obviously as ADC of enemies and whatever, but it's important to determine what the most important cooldowns are, because for example, if you were to play against, say, Ori support, her W is not going to be that important of a cooldown compared to, say, her E. or you play against Blitzcrank, you don't really care about his E cooldown or care about his W so much, but his Q is very important, right? So here, Bard Q can be impactful. Ezreal Q is pretty low cooldown, so this isn't even really a cooldown to track. Varus W is a big cooldown with, I believe it's over 20 seconds, though that's from the top of my head. And his Q is a decent cooldown to know. And Heimerdinger's W and E are also decent to know. But this is more of a poke lane, so there isn't one key cooldown, but more so like a general idea of, okay, they have this, they don't have that. So as I said, there is no way that you're going to outpush this lane, because Heimer's turrets just provide too much when pushing. And it's not like you are so much better than Varus at pushing that you could overcome that. So getting pushed in is pretty inevitable. This is all fine, fishing for Q, whatever. As you can see, because the enemy pushed in so hard, what ends up happening is that it's slightly awkward for them to play at some points. Though this is mostly because they're pretty afraid, and this guy doesn't really have a spell, right? Because when the wave is like here, the Heimer does not have a spell. Because how is Heimer going to press his turret down and use it for anything? Like, is he going to place it here or here? There's no way that that makes any sense, right? So we can say that these two overpushed the first wave, because pushing it less would have given them a level 2 advantage, and yet not put them in this awkward position. So this is actually much better for them. Because now, if they wait long enough, the next wave will come, and the next wave will meet somewhere here also, and they can actually safely get level 2. And somewhat resist a crash, to some extent, obviously. We know Kha'Zix also started top side, and he is bot side right now. So that can be a bit problematic for us due to Silas being half HP, and if a fight were to break out, we wouldn't be that useful. But yeah. So now the wave was sort of bouncing, but the enemy chose to keep pushing, which is fine. And we're just going to keep getting shoved in, which is the main issue with this lane at the current point in time. Though League is sort of like a language where I try to communicate something and you try to communicate something. You try to communicate how you will play through the champions you pick. And then if that communication was a lie, aka if you pick these champions, and then instead of pushing me in, you decide to get pushed in for whatever reason, then if you're lying to me, then I will just punish that, right? Because the truth is the stronger play. You pushing me in is stronger than you getting pushed in when you have Heimer and he becomes pretty useless in their turret. So it's not like you can completely lie about that. And since you're communicating this, I will communicate, okay, I'm not going to try to fight you, but instead I'm going to maybe poke a bit, try to get through laning phase, try to scale up, get some farm. And that's why he opted for First Strike, a tier setup with more potions, biscuits, and the Teleport Summoner spell. Teleport Summoner spell to secure a base, this to scale and get gold, and this to sustain. Makes sense, right? As most ADCs have multiple setups, like Longsword 3 pot, Longsword refillable, Coal start, Doran's Blade start, maybe sometimes shield, but Not the biggest fan of shield. I'll be honest. But yeah. So he collects wave, and as you can see, his Silas cannot play the game at all because his Silas cannot contest anything because the enemy has permanent priority. This is why in the hierarchy of lane states, it's ideal for us to be slow pushing pretty much. The ideal world is that we get to slow push and then we get to dive, we get to do whatever we want. I don't know, all the time we would have our jungler bot side, all the time our mid laner would be roaming bot lane, we would be diving, we would get fed, we would take the tower, and then we would just win the game. That's an ideal world. But they also have a jungler, they also have a mid laner, they can also resist our pushes, they can contest them, and maybe we're just too weak or whatever. So if slow pushing is not an option anymore, right? Slow pushing is not an option anymore, then what becomes the best play instead is for us to freeze most of the time. Because as I mentioned in the last video, freezing and slow pushing are the main ways that you accrue a big advantage through laning. Obviously there can be just random fights, like random all-ins, outspacing the enemy or whatever else, but trading, whatever. But if those things are even enough, then the best things you can do are slow pushing and freezing. Now, which one you should pick largely depends on how the game state is. Is your jungler playing for bot lane or is your jungler playing for top side? Because if your jungler is playing for bot lane, then usually, I mean, you can set up a freeze and set up a gank. That's fine. Obviously, that's fine. But if we're not ganking, but rather we're trying to invade, or enemy is like safe champions, like I don't know, we have a Kha'Zix and they have like Ezreal and Janna, I don't know. How is Kha'Zix gonna gank that? Especially if we don't have a CC support. So in those cases, it just makes much more sense to slow push. Generally, freezing is just what you do when you cannot slow push for whatever reason. And sometimes you will freeze even though you can slow push, obviously. But the point is just that freezing needs to give you a bigger advantage in slow pushing for you to choose it, obviously. But all freezing really does is deny enemy minions and XP. Well, and makes them like gankable, I guess. But if you don't have a fine topside state, then freezing can be really meh. Because if your jungler can't really gank them, and you're just sitting there freezing, I mean, sure, you will get somewhat of a lead, but it's pretty slow on tempo, right? The speed at which you get a lead is very slow. Because slow pushing and diving, for example, is an instant, say, 700 gold lead, or 800, or 900. When you do it, you just get a lead. Slow pushing and taking dragon, taking enemy jungle, killing enemy jungler, all of this is an instant big lead. But freezing, unless you get a gank off, is just a slow, okay, I get 100 gold, the enemy doesn't. I get 100 gold, the enemy doesn't. I get 100 gold, the enemy doesn't. Right? It just takes a while. That's like the main issue with it. And then the last lane state is like the whatever random lane state that you come up with, I don't know, instantly crashing like one wave into tower, which is only useful when you want to reset. Completely reset lane state where the wave is just in the middle the whole game. You're both like, I don't know, taking one wave, instantly killing that one wave, crashing the wave, and then it just bounces, and then the game is just here the whole game. This is just not it, to say the least. Though, I mean, for some people it's better than others, because if you're playing, say, Sivir and your support is permanently roaming and enemy support is also roaming, but your support is better roamer, and enemy is playing some single target champ, I don't know, like whatever champ you want, that doesn't clear waves so well, you just clear the wave and you just move on and do whatever you want, which can be fine for you. It can be better for you than for the enemy ADC. Like if they're playing Ezreal and you're playing Sivir, obviously you're going to just insta-kill the wave and he's gonna have to deal with it. It's not like you will really get all in then ran down. So here some unfortunate stuff happens. They get dove, okay. This is a result of the whole time them getting slow pushed in, because with the slow push, the enemy bot lane got the enemy jungler, or well, our jungler to get off the scuttle. Because our jungler had to get off the scuttle, he only had two choices, either do wolves or recall, but if he does wolves, then his tempo is all messed up, so he just chose to recall, do his topside camps, and then his raptors will respawn, his wolves will be up, and he just gets a better sequencing, while also being maybe able to do something topside, because bot lane is just not playable for him. So this is a result of what the enemy bot lane did, and they get rewarded for it. So now, if we don't have TP, then this is just quite bad. Because enemy could just push in, get a good base, and move on. And we would just be fucked. Here we can somewhat contest, but our bard doesn't really want to. He's like chilling in the jungle. He's a bit too late, so not much to do. Ideally, we would want to contest, but I think the bard was like fucking around a bit. I'm not sure though. No, he just walked there. I guess he just didn't buy boots or something, I don't know. Or in Lucky Chime spawns or whatever else. So he's too slow? Not sure. But imagine that that dive didn't happen, right? And we didn't TP back to lane. We would never get a base off. Like, if we don't have TP, in this position where we didn't get dove, right? Here, like, what does Ezreal do? Like, what do? Do you think that having heal... Okay, so you have 300 HP instead of 170. Do you think that helps you in any way, shape, or form? Enemy bot lane will stay in lane forever. They will never leave lane. That's why it's important to understand the language of League, where enemy tells me something, and I can respond to it. Now we're getting to slow push a bit. Our jungler can finally play the game. The thing is, if we're always freezing, then our teammates can never play the game. Because enemy can always move, enemy can always do whatever they want, and our teammates need to already be stronger, already have priority, already be able to move. And the enemy has to not stop them. Like, our jungler can gank the enemy bot lane where we're freezing, but the enemy jungler has to not counter gank. The enemy jungler has to not trap in the river. And all of that has to align. Do you know how scary it is as a jungler to just walk into a blind bush where you have no vision and try to gank a bot lane, which also has a wave advantage, and when you don't know where the enemy jungler is? That is really terrifying. Okay, some stuff happens. Unlucky that guy lived. The cannon crashed into tower, so we could even back off, but we have some sustain, cookies, etc., so we can just crash. Our jungler is here also, so not that scary. Our jungler is still here, so yeah, but enemy is also making a play. As I said, this is only really doable because the jungler is here. If the jungler, like, I don't know, went away or base or something, then just basing would be the play. And then, now the game is fine. He minimized his CS loss, so you can see he has really good CS. 64 at 6 minutes and 50 seconds, which is very good. And he has a CS lead even. He now equalized the kills. Enemy is going to lose this wave. And the game is just playable now. He's going to get slow pushed in, but as you can see, even though he has a level advantage, even though he has pretty good items like lead, whatever, you can't really fight when the enemy has a slow push. A slow push is not possible to really fight against unless you're much stronger. Part of it is because he's Ezreal, so minions fuck up his trading pattern. But it's not all. Obviously here the support isn't there, so all-inning is fine. And this is about it for this VOD. As you can see, he managed to turn a pretty bad lane into a somewhat playable one. The key takeaway here was understanding the nature of your lane. Because if he didn't understand it and he tried to brute force something, then the game would be unplayable the whole game, and it would just be horrible. Then we have our next VOD. The next VOD is Ruler on Lucian Nami against Ezreal Karma. Here we have a very poke slash all-in type scenario where these two like to poke, but Lucian can also all-in, and these two like to poke, and Ezreal can also all-in. So we have pretty much a similar lane on both sides. We have a ganking jungler, they have more of a farming jungler, but both junglers can mess around and gank, though Rek'Sai is going to... Oh, sorry. Forgot to mute the spot. Okay. As I've said multiple times already, League is a language, so he goes for longsword 3 bot. That's because these two are poke champions. If he went Doran's Blade and 1 potion, then the only really use that has is he cheeses level 1 in bush, he starts W and he tries to all-in them, and then maybe like level 2 he still does something. But if enemy goes longsword and 3 potions and they trade level 1 for half HP, right? So Lucian, say that Lucian has 700 HP level 1, I don't know what he has, like 600, 700, whatever. Said he has 700 and Ezreal has like, I don't know, 650 or whatever, because Ezreal has low base HP, I don't know. And let's say that Lucian goes to, I don't know, let's say 450, and Ezreal goes to, say, I don't know, 300. So Ezreal lost 350 HP, Lucian lost 250, so this should be a pretty hard one trade by 100 damage. That's pretty good. The issue now is that from pure ADC item setup, Ezreal will go back to full HP and Lucian will go back to like less than 600. Sorry. Less than 600. And this guy will go back to 650 easily. So even though we won the trade actually didn't do anything for us because the enemy just has more sustain. Though we do have Nami, so we will go up in HP, but that's something to keep in mind. And the big reason as to why in these types of lanes it doesn't make much sense to go the Doran's Blade setup. Because you might think, well, I'm wasting my gold on potions, but potions are only wasted if you waste them. If that makes sense. Like, if you're going to base and use a potion, sure, it's wasted. But if you're not basing soon, if you're just chilling, you can even keep your potions later into the lane. You can just use them on next base. You can think, but refillable is so efficient. Well, if I buy 3 potions now and I use 1 on every base and I don't have to buy refillable, that's Also gold I saved. I actually spent less gold on potions than if I bought Doran's Blade 1 potion and then I went refillable. Though obviously you can still sell refillable back, so in that case you would end up with a bit more gold. But you know what I mean. So this is a common level 1 thing in higher elos where supports like to avoid bushes, and then these bushes get contested with sweeper or whatever, and it just becomes a little bit of a brawl. Okay, so you can see that enemy got bush control, so enemy is just doing whatever they want at the moment, and we're kind of getting zoned off. Well, right now, this is a good VOD that showcases ability cooldowns right now, right here, and how we're not always able to trade, and it also showcases how to play when your support is kind of inting it. Because you can see here, we start the lane, okay, Nami just commits to this, okay, and she loses quite a bit of HP, but now Karma doesn't have Mantra Q. But then Nami uses W, pokes a bit, okay, whatever. We didn't really do anything, okay. That's fine. Nami gets Q'd again by Ezreal, which is interesting. And then he gets Q, but he uses the worst Q he could possibly think of in this lane. It's completely useless. He's standing in melee of minion, and he's trying to hit the enemy Ezreal, but he ends up missing him, so all he really hits is one minion for 100 damage, and now his Q is on a 9-second cooldown. While his Q is on cooldown, he is the weakest champion in this lane, by far. Because if we look at the champion strength, Nami is pretty strong, but she's like a poke type of strong. Karma is also pretty strong. She's like a poke, but closer to all-in than Nami type of strong at the moment. Nami is obviously very strong in a level 1 all-in if you can hit both parts of your W, but you need your ADC to be able to do the rest of the damage. And here Lucian really won't be able to, so she doesn't have that kind of power. And Ezreal is just way stronger than us because he has Q and he's actually pretty good level 1. So, since we didn't go, say, whatever, like, I don't know, since we don't have W to get extra move speed, extra passive procs, we don't have the AoE damage to hit both, it's going to be pretty difficult. At the moment we have no cooldowns, so trading is just useless. Karma hits a Q, Ezreal doesn't. Okay, now we have Q cooldown again. So now trading becomes a possibility again. Nami is doing some stuff, but you can see that we're getting really bullied by the fact that we lost this push level 1. And a large part of us losing this push level 1 is that Ezreal is pretty strong level 1 and we didn't really commit to a spell. I think if he commit to W, maybe he could contest more on the level 1, but he chose to go for a Q setup, so it's kind of difficult. Here, they punish the Nami having no W cooldown, because this Nami W isn't actually very good, because she got the W off, but she only got damage on one champion, and now Nami just has no W. This whole time, Nami has no W, and enemy just walks up, because they have everything. They have Karma Q, I think they even have Mantra Q, and Ezreal has Q also. Can't really dodge this, and now Nami can't really stay here, because the Mantra Q will hit her again, and Lucian can't really fight either. Nami simply overstayed there and they got traded on. Because of the way that the level 1 started off, they can't really contest the wave and it's kind of useless. I mean, here they can't contest the wave when this is happening. They can't really contest, right? Though here, enemy should get level 2 first, but the Karma isn't helping the Ezreal with getting it. And the Ezreal decided to try to Q Lucian. And then the Ezreal just got out-traded by Lucian, really. But this is mostly just a misplay by the enemy bot lane. Because this isn't a real scenario, but this is something to look out for in your games. If the enemy support isn't hitting the wave, maybe sometimes you can get level 2 despite you usually being unable to in the scenario. So here, he just finds a nice angle, because when you're playing bot lane, it's really important to envision where the enemy has impact. Like, Ezreal has impact in his own circle, let's say it's like this or whatever, and Karma has her impact in her own circle, whatever it is. So, if you're not in the middle of these circles, like here, or like here, if they still have like impact like between these, right? If you're not somewhere here, then usually you're only going to end up trading with one person, and usually it's going to be better to trade with ADC, because if the ADC doesn't have HP, he can't farm, he can't fight, he can't do shit. He is just a walking target. So yeah, he gets a really good trade-off. And now we're kind of building up a little push. But now, as you can see, he's respecting the fact that he has no E, he has no Q. I believe Nami has no spells also. So, what are you really going to do here? Are you going to just auto-attack enemy and just lose like half your HP? Because Mantra Q, and then Ezreal Q, and then like an auto-attack or two, and suddenly like half HP can just disappear. What's the point of that? Does a good job dodging spells, I suppose. And then this is a really useless Nami E, because Nami, like, the thing is, most Nami players don't really understand how to play the champion. They don't understand that self-casting W is a lot stronger than casting W on the enemy, and they also don't understand that self-casting E is oftentimes better than casting it on your ADC, because your HP bar is worth a lot less than the ADC's HP bar, and if you can trade your HP bar for the enemy ADC's HP bar, it's oftentimes going to be advantageous, because after that, Nami's effective range is going to be pretty much doubled after she is... If Nami is this HP, her effective range is just... She can just double her range. She can just play here, she can press E and W on Lucian, and Lucian can fight. If the enemy ADC's HP bar looks like this also. Like, the enemy ADC cannot play. He can only play in his own auto-attack range, and see how short this shit is. This auto-attack range is fucking horrible. That's why you don't really want to trade with supports, especially enchanters like this. Because if you trade with an enchanter, they can still enchant their ADC, and their ADC can just play the game. And the enchanter gets to play anyway because they just stand back. While the ADC can't. But this is really useless because Ezreal is in this bush, so for example, Eing here would end up in him just getting poked by a lot of damage. Can't really find anything to do, so just relaxes. Getting hit by that Q is kind of bad, but whatever. Good Ezreal Q. Caught the Nami off guard. He's looking for a Q angle. Whatever. Nami doesn't have E, that's the thing. Like, but you can see Nami is just getting poked down. Like, okay, she gets the W off, but then she decides to just walk off to Narnia. Just walks off to Narnia. Which isn't completely wrong to walk off, because she doesn't have spells. Because she used both E and W. But the thing that is wrong is walking like this. They both want to walk like this. They both are clicking somewhere over here because of the way that the karma's moving. But the thing is, if they just walk like this, it's still fine. So here they just kind of int it. And it's really unfortunate. Happens. Rek'Sai somehow salvages this, because otherwise it would just be horrible. He would get pushed in. And then this is the other thing about these types of wave states. When this gets crashed, he has two choices. Pop a cookie and stay, and then try to either crash next wave or push it or whatever, or just like... Or he just like gets crashed in, takes this wave and then recalls, or he just has to recall. These are like the three options kind of that he's gonna end up having in most of these scenarios where he gets pushed in like this. And these are really not happy options to have. So here he asks the jungler to push, but crashing this is going to be interesting. This is a mistake on his part because, as you can see here, he can just wait. He has to wait for next wave. That's all he can do. This is what I meant by when the wave like crashes or whatever. Like this is basically the wave after the crash. So honestly, like just basing would be the most consistent thing he can do. Because if he just bases, he just accepts that, well, my Nami didn't play the best. I also could have played maybe a bit better, and I mean, happens, what can we do? Let's just move on and play on the next base, whatever. Get a longsword, whatever. He chooses to do this, which means that he should slow push this wave until the next wave arrives, because the next wave is too close to instantly crash. So that then he can have this wave come here, and he can kill both of the waves here. And the worst case scenario for him in that case is that the enemy jungler and support just hold the wave next to their tower and he can't do much. This is a common pattern in ADC where you can't really contest the crash, and also where you want to be safe from the enemy jungler. But here Rek'Sai is trying to keep him safe, but it's just too hard. This would be a lot more doable with another wave, but obviously, like, if he had another wave and if he waited for it, Ezreal can come in time, and if Ezreal comes in time, then it's going to be a 3v3, but losing 0 HP again, so can still be really difficult. Good trade on Ezreal. This is really important actually, because this is one of the big advantages of slow pushing compared to freezing. If you freeze against Ezreal, for example, Ezreal will just play at max range and try to farm. And you just hope that he doesn't get all the CS, you hope he gets ganked or something. But if you're pushing, the thing is, bad trades become good trades. If you're full HP, like let's say that your HP is full, right? And let's just look at this HP bar also of Ezreal. Let's say that both of their HP bars are full. If your HP bar goes to here, where it is right now, but Ezreal's HP bar only loses this, do you think you won or lost the trade? What do you think? Okay, I gave you a bit of time. In the scenario where you're crashing the wave, you won the trade. Because after the wave crashes, the wave is going to be coming back to you, and if you get the base off in time, if you do this right before crashing, right? You're going to come back to lane with items, with HP, with mana, and the enemy is going to be pushing, and they're going to be pushing into a Lucian that comes back at full HP, full mana, with items, and they're gonna have half HP. That's just horrible for them. So even though you lost the trade in terms of the numeric value, you actually win the trade in the long term. Because your state on the lane after your recall is going to be much better. The good thing about him pushing the wave is that he ended up getting Dirk. This was also an option. Why not? Some unlucky stuff where he doesn't get the kill. And then because he chased the Kayn, he actually misses cannon, which is very unfortunate. Happens. So now we're pushed in, wave is crashed, okay. Now wave is bouncing, and we want to figure out how can we get an advantage of this. Our Rek'Sai is topside, enemy Kayn is also topside, and because he started topside, so he must be clearing his camps topside. So at the moment, trading is completely free. If we walk up, we just trade, it's fine. We have great items, we have Nami Lucian. And you can see, this is a result of us having this base and Ezreal not having this base. He is not full HP with low potions, or no potions, or no cookies or whatever. He's gonna get a cookie at 6 minutes, but he probably used up his other cookies. And he has no mana, so this is horrible for him. This is why even though the trade, like, okay, we won that trade, the one in particular that happened, but I'm trying to say that even if we lost that trade, it's very beneficial to us. Now enemy bot lane cannot play the game. And in a situation like this, if you're holding a freeze and this happens, that is great, because enemy bot lane can't roam, they have to base, and they're getting frozen on, so they're just losing out. Then you're gonna have an XP advantage, a gold advantage, and you can convert that gold advantage and XP advantage into a later on slow push, which you can leverage into a dive or whatever to get a bigger advantage. The real strength of freezing is that you get a small advantage, which can then be made into a big advantage through other means. Freezing is really most beneficial when you're pretty much even with the enemy. Or if they're ahead. Because in that case, you're either going to become even or you're going to become ahead, and you can then abuse that. But if you're already ahead yourself, then usually you're not using your lead in the best way if you're freezing. Though sometimes you're forced to freeze even though you're ahead. Here, having Dirk is just a lot of damage, free dive, whatever. Sadly, he has to die, but it's not the worst anyway. Now, the important thing to note here is that when this happens, when enemy support dies, you have to make sure that your top side is aware that the enemy support is most likely going to end up like just doing a passing by gank or something. Like right now, okay, these guys are just fighting, whatever. And Ezreal is like dying or whatever. But you can see this karma, she showed up from here, right? So first of all, with this, we know that the river is most likely warded for them. In the middle of the map, like somewhere here, it's most likely warded. And also, we know that she would have just gone either to a play, or she would have gone mid and done something, and then she would show up bot. That's why it's important to like ping the enemy support where you think they're going after they die. Because otherwise, your teammates are going to die to enemy support. Like say you kill enemy support level 3, they just like walk like this, they gank top, kill top, they gank mid, chunk mid, and then they show up back bot in time for like wave to crash. And suddenly you're like sitting there like, okay, well I thought we were winning lane, but I guess not. I guess we're losing. Because enemy support is out impacting us. This is the danger of slow pushes. Even though Lucian has nice items, whatever, his support isn't here. So it's a bit awkward. And the thing is, he could kind of fight if he was the one with a slow push. Like, I would say that he can even 1v2 them. Like, he can go 1-for-1, 1v2. Would say like Ezreal or whatever. If he wants to. In a situation where his wave is decent. But the issue here is that if he ever goes into the enemy has all of this to fight for them. The only reason he even gets close to winning this is because the enemy Ezreal misses like all of his spells. Legit all of them. If enemy Ezreal hit one spell, then this would be completely unwinnable. This is a common mistake that people make, even at the highest levels they make this, where they will either trade when this happens, though that's not as common in higher elo, but they will walk up too far for no reason. Like, you're not going to lose any minions here. These minions will all die, and you will get your wave. It's not really an issue. But instead this happens, and now suddenly you can see it is completely doomed. They're going to crash, we're going to lose so much. And you have to realize that this is the comparison between slow pushing and freezing, and why I say that slow pushing is almost always better if it's possible, if it's viable, if you can actually do it, like properly. where you actually get a big slow push. Because this just has too many advantages. The Lucian is losing 3 waves at the same time while his turret is getting damaged, and enemy has prio if they want it, and they have recall timings. That's why it's such an important concept that I emphasize a lot. Because I know people like LS or whatever, they love freezing. But the problem with freezing is that while on paper it sounds amazing, and it could be amazing, but the issue is that just in solo queue it's just outclassed by slow pushing. Because slow pushing also has different levels of speed that you can play at. While freezing, if you want to cancel freezing, like you have to kill the wave and then you have to wait and build up a push and whatever else. While with slow push, you just choose, okay, I need to go somewhere, I will just crash this now. But with freezing, you're locked into your lane. So it's better if all the laners are competent, if the jungler is competent, if everyone can do their stuff, and yes, then you get a guaranteed advantage in an isolated lane setting. So there isn't really much of a point to keep watching this VOD. This VOD is pretty much done. But it's a great showcase of what you can do when your support is bad. Like your support just underperforms and does random stuff, and then you have to somehow salvage it, and whatever else. So then we have our third VOD, which is one that I like more than the last VOD. Here we have Teddy versus Viper, I believe. So the matchup is Trundle Kalista versus Ash Braum. It's quite an old VOD, but it shouldn't really matter. The only real difference is that Ash and Kalista have Halo Blades, and currently they would probably have Tempo. That's the only real difference though for the lane, so it doesn't really matter. Here, the important thing to note is that this guy's Q is okay, this guy's whatever is fine, but here we're going to have more impact as ADCs, where we're going to show more of how we trade on ADC. The ADCs are going to be able to show off their own trading, because most of the other games that are currently being played, in higher elo, the ADC doesn't really get to show off their trading as much, because the supports are just stronger, the supports play like enchanters or something, there isn't really that much of an all-in. Obviously, some people play Nautilus and stuff, and then there is an all-in, but people don't really trade that much anyway, because they just wait for a hook and go in. But here the supports aren't hook supports, and the ADCs have a somewhat interesting matchup. So the strength of Kalista is that her E resets. So what you do on Kalista is you stack your E up on a minion, you auto-attack the enemy, you E them, and you get a decent trade, but a lot of ADCs will out-trade you on this first trade. But the big power of Kalista is that she can go for the trade instantly again. So, okay, you just traded. Okay, you can walk up to the enemy ADC again, and you can just auto-attack, or 2 auto-attacks and E. Or you can like do it with the minion also, you can do it non-reset, and whatever else. And Ashe is a champion that has her only real choice, level 1, is to take W. But her W is a horrible spell, because her W doesn't go through minions. It does if it kills them, but it's really pretty hard to get hit by Ashe W normally. You have to walk out into the open, but she can use it somewhat to pressure. But it's not really that nice of a spell. So here we have the minion being stacked up, right? And okay, the minion is stacked. Now we look for a little trade. Auto attack E, and we went pretty even on the trade. That's fine. But now the advantage that she has is that Kalista, if she finds a situation where she is behind minions and she can walk up to Ashe, then she can like auto attack and E her, and she's gonna get a decent trade at this point. Though Ashe is quite a bit higher range, so it's going to be pretty hard to do that. But as you can see, both of the ADCs opted for a longsword 3-pot setup because they're just going to be trading. This is the best setup for permanent trades, while Doran's is more for all-ins, as I said before. Here we get a decent trade, but now Kalista is down, right? So now Kalista's useless. Kalista's useless, she can't do anything. So what can she do? Nothing. She just backs off. This is very good. Because you have to realize that when this happens, enemy has push on you, enemy is more useful, you can't contest. You need to just let the wave crash into your tower and move on. There's nothing else to do. ADC in lane is macro, while ADC in game is micro. Once you get out of laning, the macro becomes pretty simple. You just have to collect some resources, group with your team sometimes, and play team fights, which is your mechanics and positioning. But in lane is where you can show off your understanding of the game. Wave management, trading, cooldowns, whatever else. This was a great attempt. He tried to Q through the minion to get the hit on Viper, and he tried to transfer the stacks, which is a pretty cool attempt. Viper is kind of baiting it because he's like acting as if he will walk, but then he doesn't. He doesn't really have a reason to walk either. But then he jumped forward, and this is just int. So he takes a horrible trade. But as you can see, it just happens to the best of us. Like, here, even if, say, you're gold 4 and you play ADC, or plat 4 or whatever, you could still punish him. It doesn't matter that this guy is steady. D1 Teddy, woo! Oh no, his champion doesn't do anything, you just hit him, you just click on him. He has no counterplay to that. Then Ashe like misstepped a little bit, and they got a decent trade where they got her heal. Okay, cool. This is really good by Trundle. He blocked the Ashe W so that Kalista can play a bit more. But now they just got fucked, because Kalista can't play against this push, and this is just a cool mechanic that you can abuse. The thing is, against a lot of other champions, you can't really do this as well, but there are a few key factors that allowed this trade to happen. Firstly, Guardian is down, which means that there's not gonna be the shield on Kalista if they fight. Secondly, Kalista's pretty low on HP. Thirdly, Kalista's auto attacks disappear if you walk out of vision. They don't do damage and they don't stack. And fourthly, Ashe is pretty good in early levels with just auto attacks. So this is just a massive trade where he walks out, auto attacks, walks in, and Kalista can't really do much. Because the only way to counterplay this is to ward into the bush and like commit to a big fight, but you can't really commit to a big fight when your HP is so low. Or well, that's what the counterplay is if you actually want to fight it. If you don't want to fight it, then whatever else is fine also. Here, enemy has two options. Either they can keep pulling the wave back. Like you can see, Diana's most likely bot side, while Viego is currently top lane. And here, the Ashe and the Braum can keep pulling the wave into their side of the lane. They have that option, because they don't really take too much aggro. Like this doesn't take aggro from minions. And then here, Ashe doesn't really even take aggro from minions when she's auto-attacking like this. So she can just let the wave push into her. But we'll see. Maybe he slow pushes and tries for a dive. It's also possible. We just saw this plant being used, so Diana's right here, which is pretty obvious. But yeah. Two options here. As I said, either you slow push and dive, or you just pull the wave and then you just freeze and enemy can't play the game. They chose to slow push and dive, I suppose. Diana's here. Good. Good. Great. This is obviously better than them taking the wave to their side of the lane and freezing, because as you can see, enemy loses wave, enemy loses XP, and enemy both die. If they pulled the wave to their side, the counterplay that the Kalista and Trundle have is just recall. Just take the L, recall, come back with items, full HP, whatever, and then try to contest when their jungler is bot side. Because contesting when enemy jungler is bot side and there is a stop side is just gonna be doom. But this is the thing that a lot of people won't get, because a lot of people will think, okay, well, my jungler is bot side and I want to freeze so that my jungler can gank. But the problem is enemy bot lane can recall and give up CS, and in that case you're getting a lot less than if you dive them. While dives are guaranteed, ganks onto a freeze are not. Enemy has to choose to walk up. Well, on a dive, enemy only has two options. Either they just walk back and accept losing like 3 waves, or they, well, you know, or they just die. Up to them. But walking back and then recalling is just really painful. It's a lot more painful than recalling when enemy is just freezing. Because when they're freezing, you're gonna lose like 1 wave, maybe 2 at most. If they're like slow pushing for a dive, you're gonna lose like 2-3 waves easily. And maybe a plate. And then you're just pressed. Now we're slow pushing, our jungler is bot side, the support is mid lane. Okay. Now we want our support to come bot lane. After this wave, we want him to be bot lane, but our support is kind of late at the moment. He does have boots, so he will run down bot lane. But since our support is pretty late, it's going to be pretty hard to really capitalize on the slow push. That's a good trade. As you can see, now the matchup kind of turned a little bit. Because now, instead of the Ashe just bullying the Kalista with her slow push, the Kalista gets to bully the Ashe with her slow push. This is why trading on slow pushes is an important concept, because it's much easier for the ADC that's slow pushing to trade than the ADC that's not. The ADC that's getting pushed in is just gonna have a harder time. Even though technically Ashe has an advantage because she has more range and whatever. And she actually did get an okay trade at the end. But now, since she overcommit, she gets slowed, she gets ganked, and she dies. This was all fixed, and that's that. If the best ADCs in the world are dying to such simple macro concepts in terms of laning, then I don't see why you would have an issue either in whatever your elo is. Because the thing is, there is nothing here that was really very mechanical. You can say that the Ashe trade with Kalista was mechanical in the bush, where she did like the autos and weaved in and out, like here. This. You can say that this was mechanical. Okay, so this not, but you can say that this was mechanics, but there's nothing for Kalista to do anyway. The only difference, if Ashe just stands outside of the bush and just clicks on her, like literally, you can just be Ashe, stand here, click on him 2 times, auto attack 2 times, click on him once, and walk into the bush. The difference is minor. The minions just hit you for a second instead of them. That's the only difference. The wave is still going to push towards you. You're still going to be able to slow push and dive. If you tell me, yeah, but my jungler won't do this, my jungler won't slow push and dive on the slow push, you can ping him to do it, and if he doesn't want to do it, that's fine, that's fine. If your jungler doesn't want to do it, that is fine. You still had a second option, you had the freezing. You had freezing as an option also, that would give you just a smaller lead. And even if you don't want to freeze, okay, I already said multiple times that you can just slow push and you can just crash also. Crashing is also fine. If you want, you can also crash, not really dive, but just slow push, crash, recall. Recall, obviously, when the next wave is a cannon wave, you can either look at that or you can just remember which waves are cannons. And you get a good recall off, and then you come back with items, enemies, waves like kind of pushing towards you, and you fight them on your side of the map, and that's also fine. So back to the present moment, where the Ashe and the Braum died, we collect the plate, and now it's very important for them to get a recall off. The wave is crashed, and she needs to get a recall. Obviously, it would already be a lot better if the Kalista already recalled, because it's kind of late already. I think that here, after doing like 2 auto attacks, Kalista should just start a recall right next to the tower, and I think she would get it off. Or after 1 auto attack or whatever, and she would still get played. But, I mean, this is pretty close anyway, so whatever, I guess. Maybe she doesn't make it actually in this situation, I'm not sure. But in a lot of situations you can do that, where you just recall next to the tower, and after 1 hit you just recall, support takes the plate, and you get the plate and you get a faster base. So now we have really good items. We have boots, we have Vamp Scepter, so we are chilling. I mean, we have Doom Quiver also. Okay, good. This is an example of using a sort of pseudo freeze, where right now Kalista can threaten a freeze. Well, this isn't a freeze because the cannon is in the range, but if she, like, if the Kalista and the Trundle commit to this and try to like freeze it, then enemy can have a really hard time playing. But they didn't really freeze, but the enemy walked up anyway. And this is just an example of the concept of all-inning when you have an item advantage, because we're strong in an all-in, they're strong at, well, Ashe is weaker in an all-in, but she's pretty good at poking. Our identity as a champion is all-inning, we have more items. Okay, we just all-in when they're on our side of the lane, run them down, free win. Cool. This isn't really mechanical in any way either. You can say, but he did the like stacks and Braum, whatever. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. Even if he didn't do the stack transfer onto Braum and half HP to Braum, it doesn't matter, because the Ashe would die at the same time anyway. This is a pretty bad lane state, so let's fix it. Crash. I'm not sure what his gold value is because I can't really see it, but most likely there's a recall. Yeah, he has shield bow, perfect. If he didn't have a bit of gold, maybe he would like greet something, but unlikely also. It would just be very unfortunate. Maybe he would buy boots if he didn't have shield bow, honestly. Probably sounds like the play. But no. Comes back to lane to a fight, cool. And here, the conclusion of this is that all 3 of these vods that we looked at, the ADCs really won the lane through macro rather than micro. Because a lot of players will get confused and think that ADC winning lane is a situation that happens because of micro, because they dodge so many spells, because they get so many good trades off that are like mechanically outplayed or outspaced or whatever. But it's not really that common, because the more common thing is the other way. Obviously sometimes you can outspace the enemy, especially if you're playing something like Draven, like you have a lot of damage, you can trade maybe in minions, you can outspace enemy with your move speed, attack speed. Okay. But most of the time that's not really going to be the difference. Or it can be. You can choose to make it the difference, but you don't have to. That's the thing. And playing in these ways that we have seen here, it's just going to be a lot easier. I guess I'll do a final little bonus VOD where we look at Ruler playing Ezreal against Draven, since I saw it on my recommended, and Draven is the champion we just mentioned as well. So some Fiesta stuff happens level 1, very cool. We leash, okay. Does enemy leash? Yes. Okay, both junglers going topside, we're both playing kind of weak side. Okay, so here, it's important to always identify which ADC is the stronger one, and which support is the stronger one, and which duo is the stronger one. At the moment, we're going to say that Draven is stronger than Ezreal, but only if he has 2 axes. If he has 1 axe, then Ezreal is stronger, and if they're not in minions, Ezreal is also stronger. But if they are in minions, and Draven has 2 axes, then Draven is stronger, is what we're gonna say. And Renata's just gonna be more useful than Yuumi in an all-in, while Yuumi is going to be more of a poke champ. Okay, we're contesting level 2 kind of. And we actually get it at the same time as them. Here, an important thing to notice, if you don't think you're going to get level 2 at the same time as the enemy, then contesting it is a bait. Because contesting level 2 means that the wave is going to push slower towards you. And if the wave pushes slower towards you, then you're going to deny yourself more when the enemy has level 2. Because if the enemy only has, like, say that the enemy gets level 2 by half a minion or something, and you can't actually get to that minion, they can legit walk up to you, zone you from XP, and make you lose like 5 minions. Because you will never get to walk up, and the wave is going to push towards you so slowly that you will keep losing and losing. Okay? Enemy jungler invaded our jungler. Some interesting stuff happened. Okay. Good to know. Okay. And we're getting pushed in. Enemy is slow pushing into us. Okay. We can see the enemy jungler in mid lane, and he's going topside, so we're not afraid of a dive. But it's important for us to conserve HP. Because, as I mentioned before, a bad trade when you're slow pushing is still a good trade most of the time. Because if we trade right now, we can end up half HP, enemy can end up also half HP, but they can recall, they can come back to lane, Draven will have 2 long swords, and he will just all-in us. And we will die. Okay. Not the biggest fan of how Draven is choosing to play this, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, I don't like the way Draven chose to play this at all. I think he should try to crash on Cannon Wave and base, and then just abuse his HP/mana lead and force more trades when he's going to push. But now, as you can see, he didn't follow the game plan that we set out. Crash for Cannon, right before Cannon, force a trade to either get mana or HP from the enemy, base, come back with item, all in. He didn't follow that plan, so suddenly the game is very hard for Draven. Because he crashes this, he's probably basing right now, but he's basing with 1 wave under enemy tower. Oh, he's not even basing, he's just saying. Okay. This is a common all-in plan that you need to realize, both as the person playing against it and as the person playing with it. You need to realize what you need to do if you're the Draven, the Lucian, the whatever, and you need to realize what you need to do if you're the Ezreal, the Ashe, the Jinx, the whatever else. Because this is just horrible. Enemy jungler is bot side now. Ezreal is for some reason getting a slow push. Don't ask me why Ezreal is getting a slow push, but he is. Right now he will try to crash. Good. Good. Ruler knows what's up. Mr. Ruler Man. Yuumi will try to out-attack the tower 1 or 2 times. And then she wants to get to him, but she won't make it. Oh, she did make it in time. Good timing. I didn't think she would. I thought because she took so long to auto-attack, that she would only get 2 autos, and if she went for a third, that she would miss it, but I guess not. Well played to Yuumi, I suppose. Now you can see Ezreal is coming back to lane. Tier, Sheen, cool, good. And Draven is forced to push into him. Now we're playing on a enemy slow push, and the scary thing right now is if our jungler were to decide to go topside for whatever reason, it doesn't look like he is at the moment, but if he were, then the scariest thing is for us to trade right now and either get killed in 2v2 or to get heavily traded on, have the enemy Graves do like 2 camps bot side and show up at our tower and just dive us. That's the scariest thing we can possibly imagine right now. That's why we will avoid all trading. We will collect our CS, back off. Good. See? Back off. Cool. Good. Now, maybe we poke. Okay, cool. We have high range. Cool. Relax. Our jungler. Okay. Now, if I'm him, I'm just hitting the wave and I'm thinking, okay, where is my jungler going? Okay, it looks like my jungler is somewhere on mid. He tried to get the WE proc, which refunds your E's mana and you get a decent chunk on enemy. That's point and click. Okay, our jungler is on Raptors and he's going topside. So that means we're going to be playing weak side completely. So we want to minimize trading. Unless it's a very good trade, like this. Though the last auto attack he took was not so good. But we do have a sustain advantage, so not too bad. But we want to minimize bad trades. There, obviously, we do trade because the enemy just walked into our wave and just, I don't know, did something. Like, it's hard to even explain it. This is very cool. He got WE off, little chunk. Now he has a huge HP advantage. He sadly can't really abuse it because his jungler is topside. But he's going to be looking to make a slow push with this. Abuse the fact that he has cookies. And leverage that into extra mana if needed. Try not to get ganked, obviously. They do have 1 ward, but still have to be a bit careful. Right now, we don't want to walk up too far. Like many of you, I'm sure, would make the same mistake as always, where you're the Ezreal, and you think, okay, enemy is low HP, walk up, hit enemy, do stuff. But you can see Graves just did Dragon. If Graves wasn't doing Dragon, then he would be bot lane. If Graves is bot lane, we walk up, we just die. Here, we're still fine. We're not too far up. Enemy can't really completely go in on us. Draven kept trading badly, losing mana, losing HP. So we have good CS, we're pretty safe despite playing weak side most of the game. And we're scaling up. This is pretty much ideal for us. Now what do we do? Okay, our team is topside, they're completely playing topside. Right now, the best thing to do for us is to crash the wave. Because their enemy jungler is also topside. Right now hitting the tower is also fine. Because the enemy bot lane is so low HP. So when enemy bot lane is so low HP and you're either playing both strong side, so both you and the enemy are playing strong side, or you're both playing weak side, it's perfectly reasonable to just keep bullying them. Just keep bullying and bullying. Obviously, if there's like a Nuno or something and the enemy has like enough mana to still fight you a little bit, you can't just walk up and do this stuff. But they have Graves, we know where Graves is. Cool. Right now, recalling is to play. Yuumi gets her passive procs, the support item passive. And we're chilling. Enemy bot lane based, cool. We forced them to take a bad base. If they didn't base, we could pop a cookie. I think we still had cookies, no? Yeah, we still had cookies. We could pop a cookie and we could keep bullying them, because we want to make sure that we force them to take a bad trade, or well, a bad base. Though it kind of depends when they stay, what they do, whatever. So sometimes we would stay, sometimes we wouldn't. But in this scenario, if the enemy bot lane like stayed, if the Yuumi saw them, we could just stay ourselves also, push another wave and then base or whatever. Okay. But now we're back to square one, right? The same thing happens as the pattern in the last laning. In the last part of laning, at the start. Draven is slow pushing into us, he's full HP and mana again. He is pretty strong again. Okay, so now we have to respect this. Even though we were just bullying this guy for the last, I don't know how many minutes, like probably like 3-4 minutes. Now we respect it. Cool. He didn't respect it a little bit, so he took a little bit of a chunk, but Yuumi has him. Due to his jungler being bot side, he is able to push more confidently now. If he was double weak side, he would just play it the same way as last time. You can trade a bit. Yuumi ult, cool. Cool. We got some flashes. And we have a slow push going again. Now on the slow push, we need our teammates to kind of help us to crash this. That's why we need our Belvet to stay around us. And not just disappear. So we're going to play very safe. We see Graves mid now. We're gonna keep trying to take the minions from max range. And then if our Belvet keeps playing with us, then we can play aggressive. And if she decides to go topside again, then we're gonna play a bit less aggressive. Only play aggressive when we see the enemy jungler. And we know we're not gonna get all in. Cool. Jungler here. Push. A lot of this, or well, most of this, most of these concepts that are gonna happen in the lane. Oh, that's horrible. Most of these concepts that are gonna happen in the lane are based on one, the matchups. So who's stronger? What kind of cooldowns are we looking for? What kind of trades are we looking for? And the junglers. So are we weak side? Are we strong side? Is enemy weak side? Is enemy strong side? What can be done? Those are going to be the most important factors when deciding how to manage your waves. And how you manage your waves is going to determine how you can trade. Because, as I said already multiple times, if you're getting slow pushed, or if you're slow pushing, your trades are going to look very different. If you're slow pushing yourself, then trading is going to be much easier than if you're getting slow pushed. But here, because enemy Draven hasn't died, he has a big execute on his ult, he gets a cash in, and suddenly Draven is rewarded. Massive reward. If the Draven was good, I would be afraid that he 1v9s now. But this Draven is a bit skill gapped by rulers, so I'm not really that worried about him 1v9ing it. But yeah, suddenly the game became much harder than it was before, because Draven got some kills. Now this is a big thing. Our top laner is bot lane, so we need to go top lane. Even though we haven't won lane yet, we can't just take towers, we need to go. He gets like a big fight, whatever, some mechanics, cool bro, cool. This is gonna be the part of the game that's mechanical. When you're fighting the enemy top lane, the enemy mid lane, the enemy jungle, when you're team fighting, skirmishing, whatever, that's where the mechanics come in on ADC. But if you're struggling to win lane, if you're struggling to get an advantage, that's gonna be the concept that we looked at in this video. Because we just saw how for Korean Challenger, with some of the best ADCs in the world games played out, where we could simply explain why one ADC lost and why the other ADC won. It was pretty simple to explain. Obviously, sometimes the support was the gap. Like in the Lucian Nami game, the Nami was kind of inting it, but the Lucian still managed to play the game. And here we managed to showcase that through bad decisions from Draven and good decisions from Ezreal, the Ezreal was able to survive lane past 10 minutes, and the only reason that his lane ended up messed up in the end is because of a random fight. But these random fights are something that you can't really be taught. That is something that you just have to learn, because fights are too variable for them to be taught due to there being like 150 champions in the game, and with 150 champions, the combinations of champions that can participate in a single fight are nearly endless. So that will conclude today's video. I hope you learned a little something about laning on ADC, or that the review helped you in some kind of way. This was a bit less planned than the other videos, so I did go a bit out of order with my thoughts, but it should prove to teach a thing or two. If you learned anything or enjoyed the video, do like, subscribe, comment, or tell me what you didn't like. And you can also comment what you'd like to see next. I am planning to do videos for every role, probably, and many more champions, so we'll see with that. Well, see ya.